I'm working on the building. It's a true foundation. I'm holding up the blood. I'm working on the building. It's a true foundation. I'm holding up the blood. I'm working on the building. It's a true foundation. I'm holding up the blood.
Welcome to the Under Construction Podcast. Join us as we discuss various topics meant to stimulate growth, challenge current ways of thinking, motivate change, and overall self-improvement, as well as self-reflection.
Yeah.
Tonight's conversation is going to be an interesting for us. I believe you're going to enjoy it. I know that we will. We're going to talk about individualism versus collectivism. But before we get there, let's introduce the crew. First, we have KJ, Cordell, AJ, and I'm T-Dub. Collectivism versus individualism.
Yeah.
Let's get into it, fellas.
So for me, this is a topic I like because I think we live in a society today that focuses on individualism. And I think because it focuses on individualism, we kind of look at the world from an individualistic view. Let me give you an example. In America, we have a American dream.
Yes.
Right? So what the American dream is, you work hard, you attain as much as you can to reach a level you're trying to reach. But but we all can do it, right? So we can all get rich try to get as much money as we can,
Supposedly.
right? Supposedly. But in other countries, that's not the case. In other countries, like on the eastern side of the world, the more richer one person is, the less for everybody else. It's not enough resources for everybody to get all they can get. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and it was like that mainly in the biblical times. That's why you had people that worked for Abraham, et cetera, things like that.
Right.
So it was totally different. So that's the difference in cultures. And I think that we'll get into a lot more, but I think that's an interesting point to pull out because when we have the idea of I gotta get, we forget about the collective group.
I looked at it from a point of view of from idealistic views. Just the individual, like Cordell said, the individual look is me. It's all about me. I, me. Everything is it's a selfish way of looking or thinking. Not that it's always bad.
Yeah.
But it can be. And then whereas the collectivism is what's good for the collective, what's good for the group, what's good for my family, my friend group. If we're going to talk biblical times, biblically or even historically, the things that you did for your family were seen as more valuable than what you did for yourself.
Yes.
Blessing your house, making sure your whole family ate, making sure that in biblical times, say you got a brother or you got a sister and their spouse dies, or your brother or your sister dies and their spouse is still alive. It is now your responsibility to take care of them because they're a part of your family. They're a part of your unit. But I think it also gives the heir to success where there's more ways to get there, because instead of it being just me, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, it's us. We have to do this, and then it makes it more bite-sized. So like, all right, if I do this part and you do this part and you do this part, we can get to success a lot quicker as a unit, as opposed to if I'm doing it just for my glory, just for me.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from the start of this conversation is historically things were more collective, and in modern times things have moved more forward towards the individualistic. So where do we find balance between those two?
I think it's hard to find balance sometimes because I want to build my own kingdom.
Right.
And that's why I didn't jump in when we defined it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be a contrarian.
No, but it's true.
But I think there's a beauty in having something for self.
Absolutely.
And there's a beauty in carrying out that vision.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a beauty in protecting that until you find the proper people
Yes.
to be around, because I'm so big on privacy that everything's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And at the end of the day, everybody doesn't necessarily need to know my ideas, because I don't know if they're praying for me or against me.
Yep.
True.
And for me, like, if we believe in the power of words, I believe that someone could be cursing you just as strong as someone could be praying for you.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, like, I operate oftentimes as an individual until I trust to create collectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, when I think about it in that way, I think the individual piece is important, right? Because like the self-development and the finding who you are as a person,
Yes.
and all of the things that aren't like the tangible things. It's not money, it's not possessions, right? Sometimes you have to focus in on yourself to figure out who you are as a man, right? Because we're all men. So, or even as a woman, figuring out who you are. So there's time that's necessary to develop the individual. But like you said, once you find your people or your group, you know what I mean, or your tribe, as I like to call it, you know, being able to switch gears and share your individualism with the collective is also a vital component, right? Because we talked about in other pods about the brotherhood, right?
Right.
So that's big for me. You know what I mean? I enjoy having the right people around me, the right people who can encourage me, the right people who can kind of check me as well and be like, bro, that's not, you're not standing on your word, right? Like you said you was going to do this, but I haven't seen you standing up to that. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that part is important as well. So it's subjective and it's very kind of sensitive as well.
Yeah.
How you manage those two things, right?
Yeah.
So I can see how both of them are important, but I think there's a time for each, right?
Absolutely.
Like as a younger person, I think it's important to lock in on the individual, right? Because we want to, I think in my youth, I'll speak for myself. In my youth, I wanted to be liked by other people. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be, you know, in the in group, right? But as an adult, that's less important to me now. You know what I mean? If I was younger and I can go back, I would say, bro, lock in and figure out who you are first before you're trying to figure out who you want to be like or who you want to spend time with, right? Because it's so important to really understand where you're getting your keys from, the people, like they say, you know what I mean? You tell me who you hang out with, I'll tell you who you are. You know what I'm saying? So if you're just trying to be buddy with everybody and you're not really developing that sense of self or that individualism, you can get lost a little bit, right? Like why do gangs typically want to seek out young people, right? Because they haven't developed the skill, you know what I mean, in the self-development to understand that's not what they need to be doing, right? But I think that's a big piece of it for me.
I think, let me clarify too, when I said I want to build my own kingdom, I know you guys probably understood what I was saying. It wasn't saying that, I think it goes right along with just saying that I want to build up everything for my own personal gain. But when I think of a king, kings reign individually, but their focus should be on everyone around them.
Yeah, the entire kingdom. Right?
The entire kingdom. So when I say I'm focusing on my kingdom, sometimes it's like, I got to do me because I want to make sure that my children are okay.
Right.
Making sure that my mom is okay. You know what I mean? So I think that's important. And when I look at, you know, collectivism, have you guys noticed people that come from other countries that come to America are more successful than the Americans that live here?
Absolutely.
Why is it? Just look at their whole setup. They'll come here, bro, and 20 of them live in one crib.
Absolutely. It's funny you use that example, because that's exactly what I was going to
And then they build off. So imagine we all live in one crib and it's like, okay, KJ, we're setting you up with your business first, right? None of us don't spend any money, right? We're going to set KJ up with his business. Once KJ's business is all set up, now we're working on mine.
Right.
And then they got 10 nail salons and we ain't got nothing. Right. And they all living in that one crib. And next thing you know, they all got a house. They all got this. That is a collective mindset that I wish we had as a community. But I'm going to be honest, I don't want to live with 20 people. So that's the balance and the struggle that I deal with. I'd rather pay my $2,000 mortgage than all of us to link up and pay $500. And you know what I mean? So That's hard, man.
But is that your own personal opinion, or is that what society has put on you
It's
to be
both.
an individual and to get
It's
your own
both.
house and to have your own thing, right?
It's a little
Because
bit
you're
of
not. If I have 5 roommates, you know what I mean? How does
Right.
society look at me like, oh, you can't handle your own business,
Yeah.
you can't do it for yourself?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of external pressure.
Yeah.
To be like, nah, I got this, right?
Yep.
But the struggle will be much less because we're all doing well,
All
right?
doing
And
it.
if we're all doing well and we're all putting into the pot, you know what that provides? An opportunity for us to
A
all to
space to
save
save
more,
more. Yeah.
right?
Right.
And if we're all saving more, then we have a time to invest more, right? And I can invest more in with more intention and more aggressively,
Yep.
right? If I know, listen, I'm 25, I got all my guys here, I got an extra 4 bands, you know what I'm saying? I can invest to that because if I do take a loss, you know what I'm saying? I know I'm still good.
Your overhead
You know what
isn't
I'm
as
saying?
high.
I think that's a different culture though. So like, because we're talking about people from different countries, but realistically, it's a different culture. Because like, all right, what if we talk about today's children, today's youth, or not to disrespect anybody, but today's youth and the people that are in these apartments with each other, like there's a lot of, all right, is my roommate gonna pay his rent or her rent? Is my roommate gonna pick up after themselves? Like, because some people try to get by. You know what I'm saying? I think the difference is how that is viewed in other countries.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like you said, most of those people are family.
I don't think they deal with that in those instances. I don't.
But I mean, but
I
you
don't
know
think
what?
it's
I
as
think
a parent, or
I think
don't
if
it's
they
as
do,
often.
it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like yo, living with people comes with stuff.
True.
There's gonna be things you got to deal with. And if I got to tell you you're a slob,
Yeah.
that you learn how to clean more, then that's just a combo we're gonna have. But we gonna save this money.
Right.
Whereas we came up in a culture. To your point about culturally, we came up in a culture where like a lot of people heard like, yo, when you turn 18, you're gonna get out this house.
Yeah.
Right.
And we came up with a lot of people culturally that their parents have been waiting for them to be grown so that they could clock out
Yeah.
on taking care of them.
Right.
So I
As
mean,
opposed to 1 second.
oh no, you're good.
But as opposed to other cultures, even if we operate within the country,
Right.
let their children stay with them until their children saved up enough to be able to put down on a home.
Right.
And they never seen a lease.
Right.
They
Yes.
go right to a mortgage.
Yes.
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Or they set their kids up with an owner occupancy
Yes.
before they get out of their home.
Yes.
Or I've heard people that their parents bought houses
Yep.
near their bought a duplex near their college.
Yes.
Right.
So that it was actually an opportunity to make money
Yep.
and like set them up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whereas some of us, we have a short-sighted view on what you said
Mm-hmm.
when you spoke about my kingdom.
Yeah.
So you know what? I want to get out of this bedroom.
Yep.
And I want to have my apartment and that's my kingdom.
Yep.
Right.
As opposed to a more extensive view or an expansive view where you're like, yo, I'll deal with this for a time
Yeah.
to really get my house.
And I think what you said is so important because I already told my wife this. I said, my son is 16. He's my responsibility till death.
yes.
And if my son lived with me at the age of 35, so be it. And I don't care what anybody else thinks about that. I want to make sure that when he leaves, he has everything you just named.
Right.
Right? Abraham didn't leave his father's house till he was 75 years old. I think
That's real.
I think that's why I look at the Bible as a collective, right? The way things are supposed to go is our parents take care of us.
Yep.
And when they're older, we're supposed to take care of them.
Right.
In the same house, though.
Right.
It's supposed to,
Right.
remember back in the day, what happened to grandma's house? Somebody inherited grandma's house.
Right.
And what happened? You know what I mean? And it got passed down through generations, but it seems like that principle doesn't happen anymore because we're so focused on the individualistic mindset.
I don't think we have as much reverence for those things as like back in the days of old or like as biblical times. Not everybody,
Yeah.
not saying no one has reverence for these things, but that the common consensus is that this is their house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think
That's a good point.
I think if you look at something as facade based as social media and trends and things like that, sometimes there's substance behind it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you hear people say things like we're losing the recipes,
True.
Yep.
it speaks to
Very
that.
true.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like it speaks to that. Like, you know, has your grandmother showed you guys the recipes?
Yeah.
Have you got, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what are we handing down? What
Yep.
traditions are we handing down? But unfortunately, some things need to get
Some
broken.
they do.
And one thing I dislike while we're sitting here talking about losing the recipes, I dislike us always blaming other and older people.
Oh yeah.
Because one thing people say is like, yo, why don't people throw barbecues no more? And it's like, my nigga, it's your turn.
You're the
It's right.
uncle.
It's
You're
you.
grown. You the uncle now.
You're grown now. Like, so put your socks on and put the slippers on with it.
Right.
Yo, put them open toe sandals on.
Like, it is your turn, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like I'm nice behind the grill.
I'm not either, but I've been
saying that like I'm more of a potluck guy.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you know what I mean?
But I also
Everybody
look at
bring
it.
a
I love
dish,
your
but-
example because my dad, he's the grill master.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been trying to now, I'm not the grill master, but I've been now being under him more when he's doing that.
Yeah.
I want to learn the ropes because when he's gone, I know ain't nobody else about to be the grill master anymore. When mom is gone, who's going to host Thanksgiving?
Exactly.
We all seen soul food.
Right. For real, though. For real.
You know what I mean?
And little things like that are what like lead to the collective being in jeopardy.
Yeah.
right.
Because those little things are the connecting threads that
Yeah.
keep us from turmoil.
Yep.
Like, you know, that might be where you have that you all get together for Sunday dinner.
Yep.
And I hate to say it, but because you talked about soul food.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, sometimes we're all just getting together those good old 5 times a year.
Yep.
Right.
Sometimes it's just Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Sometimes
Right,
it's
right.
just Christmas.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just resurrection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're not gonna have all the times that we used to
Yep.
because society does push individualism to the point that, like, yo, your schedule may be so impacted by what it is individually that you don't have time for everybody
Yeah,
else's
it's
stuff.
true.
Very true.
Yeah.
Like, it's really tough, bro. Like, I mean, like, and like sometimes people that were your day ones will look at you and be like, yo, how do you have time for that? But it's like, yo, like, once you get on your path, that's kind of where, okay, for example, one of my friends at work, we switched locations. So now at this point, I'm like, bro, we have to work on something together
Yep.
in order to continue to nurture our friendship.
Yep.
Because otherwise, that distance creates itself instantly.
Right.
We don't work around each other.
Right.
And it's just one of those things. These are people you're interested in. You have to decide
It's a
a
choice.
way to continue to carve out space in your schedule
Mhm.
for them. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, it's weird, but it's like, yo, I can say this weekend we're gonna go bowling with the guys from the church, and they'll be like, huh?
Right.
Like, how do you have time for that? You never have time for this. You never have time for that. It's like, these people are a part of my
It's
schedule.
a conscious
Yes.
decision you got to make.
It makes sense. Like, a lot of things fall right under, oh, nah, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Nah, I can't do it. Because that's not a part of my life. No disrespect to
Right,
people
right.
that you talk to once every couple of months.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's like, y'all don't be around each other.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back, so I'll take a detour.
Yes,
That's
sir.
just because I know we're talking a lot about collectivism, but I want to circle back to individualism because I don't think it's all bad.
No.
Individualism is important. T-Dub touched on it in the beginning. I think in your youth, when you're coming up, even if you're in that collective space, in the collective, I think it's important for you as the one who doesn't have all the responsibilities, who's only looked at to maybe sweep and mop the floor, like do chores kind of thing, to explore your individualism. Explore what can I do to help the collective?
Yeah, that's
What
good.
can I learn that's going to benefit us later on down the road? Because the mindset of like the collective is only good, our team is only good as the weakest link, or the chain is only as good as its weakest link, I think is the term.
Yeah, we're the sum of all our parts.
Right. So we have to have moments where we're strengthening what we do, strengthening who we're becoming, strengthening like the different things that we're trying to invest in, like whether it's doing the research on these investments to say, okay, this seems like a good idea, or let me take a class so I can put more value in the knowledge that I have.
Yep.
So when it's my turn to take the reins, I can drive us the right way, because there's got to be a leader in a collective.
Got to be.
But when we speak to the leader and when you talked about your kingdom and being the king of your castle, for lack of better words, bro, it is so important to me for the leaders and those in leadership to give credit
Where credit's due.
and to make sure that they're building, like, yo, to build up your people.
That's so
Like,
important.
like when you talk about the chain's only as strong as the weakest link.
Right.
Do you know what happens to that weak link when they're being nurtured? So it's important like at the end of the day, like, are you building that person, or are you just leaving them and being like, wow, homie's kind of weak? Like, but you know, everybody else is cool, so they're pulling their weight, so we'll be fine. Like, nah.
Right.
Like, yo, a strong leader will try his best. And at the end of the day, even if that's not my job, say I'm too busy and what I'm leading consumes me so much that I cannot actually look at every single person. Say I'm building a Fortune 500 company. I'm not going to know every single person.
Nope. Very true.
But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delegate and make sure that somebody's keeping a watchful eye on those people. So it's important for me to make sure there's someone in position to notice what people are doing. You know what I mean? There's going to be sections and departments that have to checks and balances where people have to report to people to make sure that everyone that's in this collective is recognized as an individual.
Yes.
And that's why that team will be uniquely strong in comparison to other teams because people will feel seen.
Right.
People hate not being seen.
Yep.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like and this is no PTSD, none of that craziness, but we've been a part of teams before where everyone didn't feel equally heard, equally seen.
Right.
And it can lead to the detriment of some great things.
Right.
You know, luckily, like, we were able to pivot and work our way around it.
Yeah, for sure.
And end up in a great place.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Great part of the conversation. I just want to pivot just a little bit, right? So I want to talk about the benefits and also the drawbacks of individualism versus the collectivism. But let's start with the benefits of individualism. I think you were talking about that as far as like the leadership and understanding where you are, because when you know yourself, you know if you're built to be a leader or a follower, right? But I think in order to be a good leader, you have to learn how to follow first. Yeah. So when you're developing those skills, right, and you're figuring out who you are as a person, right? Like a general doesn't start off being a general; they start off as a soldier. Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? So being able to build morale and having those key components, like you were just talking about, for me, is one of those benefits of being the individual. But what do you guys also see as benefits of being the individual before we go to the other side?
Tunnel vision, bro. Like, I think, hey, when you're working on a collective vision, we have to factor in others' opinions, right? When you're only worried about your individual journey at that point, it's easy to mute out the noise because there's not as much of it.
Facts.
So that way you can become self-aware if you focus on yourself.
Yep.
That's the best time to focus on yourself, when you're on an individual journey.
Yeah.
So at that point, focus on yourself, become self-aware, and then you can see, if you're honest with yourself, you can see your sore spots. You can see where there's room for improvement. So that way, when you go to a collective, you know what you can bring, you know what you lack, and you know what you can work on and improve, and you also know how you can help.
Yes.
What I was going to bring to it was tying into that personal experience. So, like, in order for you to know these things, individualism takes you to a place where you have to focus on yourself, to your point, where you have to kind of see where you're at, what you can do, and all these things. These things are going to help the collective later on. They're going to need the personal experiences of the collective.
Yes.
Because you're going to have to make decisions. You're going to have to be able to see something and be like, yo, I tried that when I was by myself, and this is what happened. This is a drawback. This is something that I saw slowed me down.
Yep.
So, like, you can have detractors, and there can be things that that stunt the process. But if everyone in the collective has that individualistic thought process of their personal experiences, they can draw back on those just to say, yo, this didn't work, but I know a way that did work. So basically going to those personal experiences so you can kind of tie those into the collective.
The benefit of individualism is learning who you are and what role you play in the collective. I love the analogy of a chessboard. If I'm a pawn, I can't move no other way but a pawn.
Right.
If I'm a rook, I only can move a certain way.
Right.
So if I know what piece I play, I don't have to worry about, you know what I mean? I know doing somebody else's job. And I think it works like that in the church, sports, everything. Like, I know, bro,
play your position.
I'm on the line.
Right.
I know that I'm here to set screens and get boards.
Right.
Dennis Rodman made so much of an impact because he knew his role. I don't want to shoot. I just want to get 30 rebounds.
He was focused on being great at
and
his
focus
position.
being great at his position. And I think that's what we lack in the church sometimes. Everybody wants to, and I'm not gonna. I hate when everybody say everybody wants to be up front because that's not true.
Very true.
But I think what happens is when people have an individualistic mindset in the place where it should be collective, you want to get to that.
Yeah.
And our job is to make sure people know their roles so that they are effective in the body.
Yeah, man, I like that. I like that component. I like what everybody shared. Lots of good insight coming from each one of you. I appreciate that. So now let's look at some of the drawbacks. You know, for me, looking at drawbacks of individualism is kind of the opposite of what KJ was saying, right? Because there are times where people don't have the ability or they haven't gained the ability to be reflective, right? So if you're an individual and I'm really good at shooting, right, I'm never going to work on my handle. You know what I'm saying? I'm never going to learn how to look for the dish because I'm really good at shooting. So it's like, okay, every time I get the ball, I'm putting it up, and they're like, "Yo, man, I got teammates right now. I'm a black hole, and then I can be isolated because I'm not willing to look at the things that are some of the deficits,
That's
right?
so good.
And that's where growth happens, right? If I'm really good at something, I don't really have to continue to focus in on that, right? But the deficit is when you're not reflective and saying, "Wait, what are my teammates saying? You know what I mean? What am I not doing? You know what I mean?" And being able to shine light on some of the darkness. So it's like, okay, that's a place where I can self-develop, right?
Yeah.
But that's when you don't have the ability or you haven't learned yet how to be reflective and see the negative attributes of yourself where you can focus energy and growth. So that's what I look at as a drawback from the individualistic side. What say you?
I mean, another drawback in my it depends on personality type.
Thanks.
So I'll speak to a personality type that I find myself being at times, and that I know other people. If you're introverted, the thing is that unfortunately, no man is an island.
Right.
But when you're introverted, there's a certain level of comfort in isolation.
Yeah.
And you can develop such a beautiful relationship with having your own space that you almost handicap yourself, because at some point you are going to have to work with others.
Yeah.
And you may mess around and lose that skill.
Yep. That's so true. One of my drawbacks is to go, being I'm not an introvert, but people that are, and they focus on themselves so much. When you're isolated, you're missing out on the people that are going to actually help you enhance yourself. Right? I'm a good shooter, but if I was to be able to be around Steph Curry, I would be able to get the tips from him to become an even better shooter.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, sometimes we can get so focused on me. We're missing the opportunities where people have the answers to help you become the better you.
I think oftentimes, we're scared. Like there's some fear there.
Yeah, it is.
There's fear, like, you know what I mean? Like, people are so used to operating from a space of protecting themselves.
Yep.
And having situations where like it didn't go positively before the last time you opened yourself up to allowing others to be around you. So now you carry that into new situations, and you won't even think that the next person you encounter may be trying to help you. Like he said, you're so worried that someone's going to negatively impact you that you don't even give them a chance to positively impact you.
Right. So another thing, one thing I would say for a detractor would be putting everything on your shoulders. So like, this is something that I've done in the past, but being an individual, I find I'm in a more comfortable space to handle the things by myself. So I'm less willing to ask for help. I'm less willing to ask for direction, only because I feel at times that I may not, to your point, I may not receive the answer that I'm looking for, or it may be met with controversy.
Yeah.
As opposed to a helping hand. So I think that the downside to being an individual is when you're used to doing all these things yourself, when you're used to putting everything on your plate, to Cordell's point, you miss out on opportunities to make your load easier.
Yeah. It makes me think about Kobe, right? You remember those rough seasons when he had the smush Parkers and all of them. We all remember. But Kobe was like, that's when he scored the 81 points.
Scoring,
but he knew that all the work he put in Like,
Right.
bro, I've been in the gym all day. I trust myself more than anybody.
Right.
But I loved when Kobe ended up getting Paul Gasol, Lamar Odom. We seen a different part of him. He became more of a leader. That's when he won those, you know what I mean?
Won
And
the
if you
chips,
look
yeah.
I go back and look at that roster, I'm like, yo, they really wasn't even that good, bro. But Sasha Vujacic,
Not the whole team.
but I'm just saying. But I'm looking at that roster. It wasn't no Miami Heat roster.
Right,
but
right.
Kobe, literally, his leadership, what he did, he captivated. Okay, I know what I can do.
Right.
But now it's time for me to trust the individuals that I have around me. And bro, he went from losing against the Celtics.
Right.
That next series, y'all know Paul Gasol was a totally different animal when he came back that next year.
Right.
Why? Because Kobe had trusted him and they built that relationship.
I like how
you know?
you punch in your hand.
That goes right back to the leadership.
Yeah.
Being able to notice. So maybe there's a little bit of give and take there.
Yeah.
Because you definitely want to be able to build.
Yep.
And the person that, even if they're the weak link that we talked about, you have to see some potential.
Yeah.
So if you see their work, don't write them off because they're the weak link.
Right.
If they do start to show some signs of work, that's good. I see you.
Mhm.
Right.
We at my job we talk about that, and it's called random
Affirmation right
Yeah.
there.
randomly.
But it goes a long way.
reinforcing.
That goes a long way. Just telling somebody, yo, I see you. Like, you don't know, people don't understand those words like that. It literally motivates people to want to do more, you know? It really does. And I think that's important, us as individuals, to make sure that we're doing those little things to build our collective group around us.
Absolutely. Good conversation, fellas. I enjoy wrapping this up with you guys right now. I think we're going to bring it to an end right now. But when we get back, part 2, let's jump right back into the collective side of things, right? So that's going to do it for this episode. We'll be back with you next week. Lock in.
I'm working on the beat.